Just to start this video, I'd just like to say we want to do Dear Bear, like problem pages. Dear Bear, my problem is, I've already had one, which I will be addressing, but if you've got any problems, emotional or otherwise, please leave a comment starting Dear Bear, and then tell us your problem, and we'll see if we can do a video to help dish out some advice from the bear. Hi, you're with Bear Friday, Body Language, and today we're doing these two, Seann and Katya, and their apology. For some context, I'm not going to show you any Strictly Come Dancing. I'm not going to show you any of Seann's comedy. I don't watch Strictly Come Dancing, hyper-sexualised family entertainment, and I don't watch Seann's comedy, as I don't find it funny. But this is the big deal, the big drama. Seann kissed his dance partner. These are the photographs, or some of them. First, for context, I'd just like to give a quick analysis of these photographs, and then we'll get into the apology video. Something quite interesting in the body language is that Seann has his hands in his pockets here, or at least his thumbs are tucked into his pockets, and it's Katya who has a hand gripping his jacket. He is leaning towards her. You can see she's standing up tall, leaning up towards his face, but he's leaning in towards her. And what this all shows us is that Seann is afraid to commit to this action. Maybe he felt his hands were tied, but it's definitely something he wanted to do. He's leaning in, he's got his eyes closed, he's in the moment. And Katya here is being forced to sort of cross the border. She's the one that had to cross the line, so to speak. I'm expecting she probably placed a hand on his jacket and then he went BAM in for the kiss. But this second photograph is quite revealing as well, because Seann's holding something here, so maybe that was a reason for his tied hands. Maybe he was just holding this bag, and he's got this big smile on his face as he watches her, as she turns and maybe walks, maybe dances away. She's dressed quite provocatively here, in quite a sexualised manner. So there's obviously been some flirting going on between them. She's not averse to the flirting. She's been enjoying it. You can see this smile on her face as she turns away. She's probably leading him on a bit. And when you think about it in context of dancing, he's obviously the lead man. That's the role that the male dancer has, is the lead dancer. But she's clearly the lead, isn't she? She's teaching him. And here, she's clearly leading this behaviour. And he's sort of enthralled, infatuated by it, sort of lost to it. So that's the first couple of photos that tell that sort of story. But then this other shot tells a very different story, doesn't it? In this shot, the bag's on the floor, both hands are around her. She's actually being forced back, leaning back, in a sort of ballroom-esque lean. But really his hands are all over her. So just based on these two pictures, and it's only, it's just a couple of pictures, it's not really much to go on, is it? But based on these two pictures, I would say they've been flirting for a while, that Seann's really into her, she's into the attention, and he's been pushing, maybe not physically, but maybe mentally, maybe through words, he's been working the charm. And I believe this must be after the kiss that she's sort of strolling off. Or maybe he chased her down and kissed her, I don't know, but, he thinks the charm's working. And it's all a bit of a big flirty game. The kind of reality payoff to the flirty game is that he gets to get his hands all over her. When the flirting, talking, conversation stops, he's trying to push this. It's almost like a capture, isn't it? Like a suffocating bear hug. But as I say, I don't think you can read too much into two photographs. What you can read into, if you're one of their partners, what you can read into it is that there's no point in hanging around with these two anymore. If you're his girlfriend or her boyfriend, you should look at that and say, that's the end. Because they're both involved in this cheating. If you're going to start ascribing blame, then both have to take a spoonful of that, don't they? Neither here is totally innocent. Both are playing the game. What I should say about these photographs is that when these paparazzi take these photographs, they shoot off loads, they fire loads of photographs, and then they select the ones that tell the story that they want to show, or the ones they feel will sell the best. So the fact that you may have seen these images more often than you've seen these images tells you that story, that the media, whichever outlet it is, wants to shape this story so it's as easily saleable or points the finger in the direction they want. And they've done that from a selection of probably 100 photographs, and they've taken the most incriminating or the most interesting and only showed you those. So let's look at the interview. Zoe Ball. This is Zoe Ball, Strictly Come Dancing, so I expect the BBC will copyright strike the shit out of my channel and ruin any possibility of me generating any income from this video. But let's take a look.
We like to talk about the dancing, but that's been somewhat overshadowed by events this week. You've both apologised for your behaviour. Is there anything else?
Right, before we get on to anything else, Zoe helps them to skim over the apology. She said you've already apologised, and you might think that she means publicly on Twitter or in some sort of statement, but I think what she actually means is you've apologised to the people close to you, your partners, that you've directly hurt with your cheating. I think that's what she means. Let's see this again.
This week, you've both apologised for your behaviour.
So they've both apologised for their behaviour, and there's a nod from both of them. Let's just take Seann first. Let's just look at Seann's nod.
For your behaviour.
And I can't pause it without getting this blink. He does it twice during the nod.
For your behaviour.
And he's licking his lips. It's signs of anxiety, of stress there.
For your behaviour. Is there anything?
Signs of anxiety and stress, and a little bit of shame. His head starts in a higher position, finishes in a lower position, a little bit of shame, and a deep breath at the end as he prepares himself for what's about to come, for his own opportunity.
For your behaviour. Is there anything?
His hands are also crossed across his lap, and his legs are crossed, pointing away from Zoe in a defensive posture, just pure defence. But let's contrast that with Katya.
For your behaviour. Is there anything?
It's quite interesting. I'm going to show you this in slow motion with Katya.
For your behaviour. Is there anything?
There's quite a few things to read from Katya here. The first is
For your behaviour.
the slow nod down and the holding the head down. Now that is a position of shame. She does acknowledge the shame she feels inside, but you can see her hands are clenched here, crossed across her. She's also very angry, and it's a very defensive position.
Yeah.
There's a blink, her thumb twitches.
Yeah.
She's quite an active person, and she's forcing her body to stay in this closed down, still position. So I think there's a lot going on in her mind, but deception is clearly being signalled by this forced stillness, this statue pose.
Is there any?
And at the end, she slightly shuffles her legs. She's uncomfortable, she's stressed, but she's also angry.
Is there any?
And I don't know if you can see this, but around her mouth here, there's that slight sneer of contempt. So she feels angry, she feels stressed, and she feels a certain amount of contempt. Maybe she's the orchestrator of all this. Maybe she feels that she's capable of playing a big, complex emotional game, and this is just part of it. But there's anger and contempt. Or maybe she's just angry and contemptuous of the man sitting next to her. And there's one other thing that I'd just like to point out here, is she's almost doing that naughty girl daddy eyes, isn't she? I don't know much about I don't know anything about her background, but is this the body language of a spoiled child who has often got her own way?
Anything else that either of you'd like to say?
I think that
I got to pause that there, because is there anything else you'd like to say?
Anything else that either of you'd like to say?
I think that
Gives us some really interesting stuff as well. She's playing with her hands here, and then the fists come out. So she's got things, she counted on her fingers. She's got things that she thinks should be said in a particular order. She's got her own strategy to this. Maybe the way she looks at him, maybe she's already given him this strategy. The hands are clenched now in this anger she'd like to hit him. Maybe he's not capable of following the strategy in the way she thought he was. Maybe he's fucking this up for her and she's angry at him. Maybe he's not as smart as she thought he was.
I think that
What Seann did there is he did what we call filling. So if you're ever in a conversation and you can't think of the next thing to say, but you fill the space with other words and spacing like that. If you do that, then you're preventing the other person from talking. It's a way of dominating the conversation space with your verbal and auditory signs, a way of showing that you're speaking and you've taken the floor, but you haven't really got everything lined up in the way you wanted to say it, have you? So you're just filling. Quite often people will fill if they're giving a speech and they lose their way, but in this context, it's a way of taking the mic, it's a way of grabbing the floor, and it's something that Katya finds irritating. She looks up to the sky, God please help me. This look up to the sky could be avoidance. She could be looking up at the bright lights, something in the set, trying to avoid being present in the situation for a moment. It could be her looking up into her visual memory, picturing the scene, the event. But somehow I doubt it. She's feeling this anger, this uncomfortable anxiety, and this look is a way of escaping it for a moment. She wants out of this situation. And that slight sneer, I mean, you might say that's just the way her face sits, but it's almost an attitude of disgust here. It's almost like she's smelled something bad and she's turning her nose up at it. And that bad thing she smelled is the approaching bullshit that Seann has signalled with his drawing a breath. I think I'm about to chat some shit. And I think Katya has learned enough about Seann now that the gloss and the wit has worn off, and she sees him as less witty and less intelligent than she thought, and now she's kind of in revulsion.
I think that obviously I'm sorry for the hurt that I've caused.
So there he does say sorry straight away. He says, obviously, I'm sorry. And using the word obviously is condescending. It's demeaning to the people who expect the apology. Obviously, I'm sorry. Like, what did you even think? I wasn't sorry. It's that same sneering tone of someone who thinks they're better than you. Obviously, I'm sorry. With a raised eyebrow. So there's some irritation going on here.
Obviously, I'm sorry.
And a shake of the head and a wave of the hand. I don't think the shake of the head is total cognitive dissonance. I just think he's shaking off the idea and he's moving his hand in a sort of bartering action. This is a negotiation.
For the hurt that I've caused.
He does this tiny move of the mouth.
We were getting the hurt that I've caused.
I think it's a flash of disgust again. There's this repeating theme in this apology of disgust, revulsion. He's looking deeply into his remembered feelings here. And I think he remembers seeing his girlfriend upset, and it slightly disgusts him. He's like, ugh, what am I going to do with this person crying? Certainly, if you've ever seen a stranger really upset, it can kind of make you feel a bit awkward being around somebody who's really upset. You should feel empathy and compassion. But obviously Seann feels a little bit awkward here at the remembered feelings of the upset.
For the hurt that I've caused, we were getting on well.
Let's watch it all through and I'll stop it again really quickly.
I think that obviously I'm sorry for the hurt that I've caused. We were getting on well, we were having fun. We had a couple of drinks and we made a huge mistake and I regret it deeply.
Yeah.
He knows the right words to say and he said them. And he's kind of shaking his head while he does, discounting it, disregarding it, sort of making it less important. Maybe he feels this is all less important than it's been made out to be. He obviously doesn't put a lot of stock in his behaviour here. To him, it's not something that you should be able to measure someone's character by. I don't know why. I don't know why he feels that he can disregard his own actions so easily. But he shakes his head doing that. And again, with this movement of the hand while he's talking, which you can't really see, but he uses his hand while he's talking here, it's almost like a politician. It's almost, I think it's bartering, I think it's negotiating, and it's almost like a politician delivering a pre-prepared speech.
I'm sorry for the hurt that I've caused.
There's the shake of the head with the sorry, which does demean the apology.
Obviously I'm sorry for the hurt that I've caused. We were getting on well, we were having fun.
And it's so revealing to watch her when he speaks.
We were getting on well, we were having fun.
There's this micro expression here, this stare. You'll notice a lot of the time her eyes are semi-closed. It's stress and anxiety causing her to feel a little bit sleepy as the blood rushes away from her brain. Her arms crossed, the fidgeting with the hands, she looks very anxious there. But when he says having fun, she widens her eyes as if to say, don't go there. And also with an emotional...
We were getting on well, we were having fun.
I can't believe he said that. She thinks that sounded bad. She's listening to it and judging his apology. And she's doing that to see how it's going to come out at the other end. She's well aware this is going out on television and she's trying to reason out the reaction. And when he says things that she thinks will be taken badly by the public, you see her react as if she is on the side of those people.
We were getting on well, we were having fun. We were getting on well, we were having fun.
She didn't like that at all, did she, that he said that?
We had
And she looks at him there with that slight sneer, slight smile. Maybe she's remembering the fun they had that is obviously not going to be spoken about. And she's got that duper's delight. She feels better than him. She thinks she's smarter than him. She's the cat and he's the mouse. But she's also a little bit disgusted. She thinks he's a bit of an idiot.
couple of...
There's that.
We had a couple of...
Again, her eyes do this double blink, the stress. There's a lie here. There's a lie. It's
We were having
deception.
fun.
It's deception. There's a lie here.
We were getting on well, we were having fun. We had a couple of drinks and we made a huge mistake. And
What is that couple of what that they had? That he doesn't say. We had a couple of... And then drinks. So drinks is the sanitised word, is the word he found that covers up the thing that he didn't want to say.
we had a couple of drinks and we made a huge mistake and I regret it deeply.
Yeah, okay.
He says to himself there, done that, got that out of the way, sorted. This was something he didn't want to have to be doing, talking on telly about this thing and, Like, he nods to himself.
drinks, and we made a huge mistake, and I regret it deeply.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. She says, Zoe says softly, yeah, okay. And he gives himself a little nod of approval. He's got through that, and he feels that he's done that quite well. Holding his hands here in a very uncomfortable sort of faux gentle way. Playing the gentleman now. Poor Seann, he made a mistake. And he's apologised and got through it, he thinks. And this is where Zoe turns to Katya, and you see as her name is mentioned, she sort of sits a little more upright and switches on mentally. She's no longer judging him. She's now ready to deliver her own part of this apology.
Yeah, okay. Katya.
Yeah, obviously I apologised, and I can't apologise enough to everyone who it hurt and involved. And but the main thing for me and Neil are absolutely fine, and that's what matters to me the most right now.
So let's just break this down a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a little drawing of breath. She's a little bit nervous about this.
Obviously
And a stutter, and the holding back of the hands as her body starts to shake. I think there's some deception in this.
Katya.
Yeah, obviously I apologised, and
She actually looks at her hand at the start as well. She waves it and looks at it, and it's this ring down on her finger, isn't it, that she's looking at. She's thinking about the relationship with whatever his name is, the guy that she's with, and that symbol on her finger.
yeah, obviously I apologised.
And she nods her way through that as she sort of checks off this mental checklist of what she's achieved so far since the kiss to get control of her life. Nodding as she sort of ticks off I've sorted this, I've got through this problem.
Katya.
Yeah, obviously I apologised, and I can't apologise enough.
And there's this look up.
Apologised, and I can't.
She's bored of it. She's looking up at the remembered. I think she's a very visual person. I think she thinks in images, and I think she's looking at her memory of her apology to her partner and whatever conversation they've been through.
I apologise enough to everyone.
There's a little look away because she says to.
And I can't apologise enough to everyone who it hurt and involved. And but
I think she's got some notes. I think she's looking away to some notes over there. Maybe there's something written on a board. There's a lot of stress going on here, and she's finding it difficult to maintain her composure and just deliver this little speech. She's finding it stressful.
who it hurt, and
But there is a little push away in that body language.
it's enough to everyone who it hurt.
She kind of wants to you can't really see her hands here, but you can just get the impression of it. I think she wants to put it all back in its box, and that includes everyone that it hurt. And I think she's referring there to his girlfriend who's kicked up this fuss, because she wants to put her back in her box. And she literally says she can't apologise enough, but she means she can't apologise directly to that girl, because she thinks it's better that she just doesn't talk to her.
Enough to everyone who it hurt and involved, and apologised, and I can't apologise enough to everyone who it hurt and involved. And
she's rubbing her hands here as she's smoothing things over.
but the main thing for me and Neil are absolutely fine. And
But also there's a sinister tone to this smoothing of the hands, is that I think she feels she can sort of steamroller over people. I think she feels smarter, more dominant. It's her right hand that's on top doing the pushing, the smoothing.
but the main thing for me and
But it's also a very self-satisfying, soothing action. So maybe it's just the stress of the moment causes her to require some physical contact here. Maybe she'd be much happier if her partner was holding her hand, or somebody was. But she's rubbing it better, smoothing it over herself here.
Neil absolutely fine, and
that
me and Neil
when she mentions Neil, her partner, me and Neil, she throws these hands apart. So obviously there's been a big explosion, a big discussion, probably an argument. And she says they're absolutely fine, but they were blown apart.
But the main thing for me and Neil absolutely fine, and that's what matters to me the most right now.
And she says that with very wide eyes. There's a little bit of fear in this when she realises that Neil is watching and she has to appeal to him directly.
Absolutely fine, and that's what matters to me the most right now.
Okay.
And
she loses her track again because her mind just says, give a show to Neil. So she does the wide eyes, prove, believe me, honestly, this matters to me the most.
right now.
Okay.
And
What's next? Looking away to the notes. And again, that expression of disgust, her boredom. She really doesn't want to be put through this. And I think she wouldn't be put through this if Seann hadn't fucked up. I think that's the way she feels. But it's really interesting as well. You've got to go back and forth between them in this. And this is taking ages, I know, but hopefully you're enjoying it. But when she mentions Neil, just check out Seann.
but the main thing for me and Neil
He looks away.
absolutely.
And then back up to Zoe. And that looking away, it's a kind of cowardly. He's looking into his memory of his emotions, and he may be thinking about his girlfriend who's been hurt, who's been doing the crying, or he may be remembering the incident. You don't know.
But the main thing for me and Neil
But he snaps back out of it when she says the main thing for me.
involved, and but the main thing for me and Neil
And it's almost this look of defeat. And the disgust starts to appear on his face. He was making a play for this woman, this Katya, and Neil has sort of defeated him. And this is the passive body language of the defeated.
absolutely fine, and that's what matters to me the most right now.
Okay.
Maybe he lost. Maybe he thought he was going to be able to steal Katya away and ride off into the sunset. But no, she was just playing a bit of a game and she wants to stay with her boyfriend.
Most right now,
Okay.
and focusing on my job. And
He looks at her here as if to say, how fucking dare you? As he pokes around in his mouth with his tongue. He wants to speak, he wants to say something.
right now,
Okay.
and focusing on my job. And
He wants to argue with her. I think his ego is driving him here. He can't believe that she's chosen Neil over him, and he wants to state his case as to why he's better than Neil. He wants to put in some interjection here, and he can't. So he's holding his hands, he's chewing his jaw, and looking at her again with... And here's the creeping disgust, the revulsion coming in. She's no longer something he's looking at with puppy dog eyes. He wants to argue.
to me the most right now,
Okay.
and focusing on my job and doing it as professionally as I can.
Okay.
And then that expression of dissatisfaction breaks to this choir boy look.
Doing it as professionally as I can.
You see this little smile start here?
Okay.
Sort of, that's his apology look. That's a performance. That's a portrayal. It comes in when she says about being professional. And he's thinking, yeah, my profession, my job, my act, my performance is what he does as a job is he pretends to be somebody. He performs a version of himself on stage and in public in general. And he's now slipped into performing his act, which usually is to be jolly and make people laugh. But in this context, his act is to be a good boy and to have not done things wrong and to have made a mistake, and a nice boy that the public will not hate. So he's putting on his act there.
And doing it as professionally as I can.
And while she's talking about doing her job and doing it as professionally as she can, she's wringing her hands. This is really interesting because I think there's another context to this where she could lose that job if she's not being professional. You know, if you're one of the dance tutors on the TV show, maybe you shouldn't be sleeping with the people that you teach dancing to. Maybe the producers won't keep a dance teacher, a contestant on, if they're behaving in such a sexually promiscuous way. That's certainly a concern for her, and she wants to reassure the producers of the show that she's a professional. Seann, on the other hand, doesn't have to answer to anyone really, has a wider scope when it comes to constructing his image in the media, and doesn't care about next season of Strictly. And that condescension comes into it here in his mind. He kind of thinks, you're a fucking stupid little job. What about me and my big ego and my big problems? You and your stupid little dancing. Huh.
And focusing on my job and doing it as professionally as I can.
OK. Seann, your ex-girlfriend Rebecca has put out a statement. Is there anything you'd like to say about that?
This is great. A great big deep breath in and a shuffle away. In Seann's mind, at the start of this, these two are a couple. He can't put his hand on her hands. She's wringing her hands. I only see it now, but his right hand is pushed towards her in the hand clasping. He'd quite like to, in Seann's mind, he'd quite like to be in this position with his arm round her and his hand on hers, saying, well, we're a couple now and we're really sorry, but love has a way of just taking over. But she's not backing him up with that, and it's kind of pissing him off. But at the start, he's caught between this play for Katya. He still has feelings for Katya. He still has a crush on her, and he still thinks that he might be able to work his way into. And he still thinks that he might be able to work this situation, that he might be able to sort of win her over in the end. I think he thinks that because I think he's a little bit dim and a little bit love-struck here. But when it comes to talking about his, I assume, ex-girlfriend, he makes this physical shift away from Katya, because while he's appealing to her, he wants her to see him as not wanting to be, like he's trying to play two girls at the same time. To the one sat next to him, he wants to make sure that she feels he wants her more. And to the one at home, when it comes to talking to her directly, in this context, about her directly, he wants her to feel that he's committed to her and moving away from Katya.
I think...
Doesn't really know how to say or what to say, because the things he thinks are not appropriate when it comes to constructing the positive image in the media that he wants. So this is difficult. Tilted neck, stutter. I'm expecting some deception.
I think, first of all, I would rather not be having to address this publicly.
That's very telling, isn't it? That's almost like saying, thanks very much, ex-girlfriend, for making this all public in Twitter. And he says it like such a choir boy.
I think, first of all, I would rather not be having to address this publicly.
Publicly? Did he go to private school? I don't know. But that Jack the Lad, cool boy image has just been completely shattered there with that choir boy snobbery. He thinks he's got too much class. He thinks he's got more class than the girlfriend, when in actual fact he's got less class. It's obvious. Money can't buy you class, of course. I'm not talking about financial upbringing. I'm talking about class, dignity, honour. But in a situation where he has committed a grievous dishonour, he's trying to turn it back on her and say that it's dishonourable of her to bring it all up in public. Like she's some tabloid tramp.
I think, first of all, I would rather not be having to address this publicly, but I feel like I have to.
Little breath in there. I feel like I have to. Does he feel that he has to? No, he feels that he shouldn't have to. He just said it, and he's got his chin back and his neck's tense. This is just the politician speaking. He's been told that he has to, and he's got some resistance to that whole concept.
I made a mistake.
He almost says that aggressively. Like, haven't you made mistakes? That's why he uses that language. That's why he says, I made a mistake. Because as we all know, we all make mistakes. So he's saying, I'm just like you. Why are you punishing me for that?
I made a mistake.
Again, it's almost confrontational, argumentative. I made a mistake. Yeah.
Which I'm very sorry for.
He shakes his head when he says he's sorry for it, and he's got this tense body language. I don't believe that.
Which I'm very sorry for. I'm sorry for the hurt that I've caused.
He has to give some sort of qualifying statement about the apology, and that qualifying statement is he's not sorry for kissing the girl, he's sorry for causing the hurt, which is a very generic sort of, say what you're supposed to say, sorry.
Which I'm very sorry for. I'm sorry for the hurt that I've caused. You never think about...
He's touching his face here now. You never think about, not I didn't think about, but you never think about. Another way of mitigating this apology, making it something that everybody does, that therefore is not so bad, and covering the face. I think we all know that's a bad sign.
The extent of the damage that you're going to do.
It's very stuttered and held back language.
In a moment of...
Scratching the head, can't even think about what to say here, can he? The usually very witty, very verbose comedian has no pre-prepared lines, hasn't been doing this act night in, night out, and is fumbling for his words, hand in his lap, covering his crotch. Finger under the nose again.
The extent of the damage that you're going to do in a moment of, a mistake that you've made.
He was going to say madness, wasn't he? But madness isn't a good look, I would think. So he stops himself from saying madness. This is all a bit strange to me. Hang on.
The extent of the damage that you're going to do in a moment of, a mistake that you've made.
And he's got that angry, almost determined, again, oppositional, argumentative face. I think he doesn't think it was a mistake. He thought he was doing the right thing, and now it's all turned out to go bad. And so it is a mistake in theory if everyone says it's a mistake, but he still hasn't got it into his head yet, has he? He still thinks he might have a shot at Katya, and that it wasn't a mistake, and that he could have been on a yacht with Katya now, and how's it turned out like this? But I'd also like to just ask a question. He sounds very nasal. He touches his nose twice. He talks about a moment of madness. Is he, far be it from me to suggest that he's on drugs, but was he using cocaine that night? Earlier we had the pause before he said drinks, didn't we?
We had a couple of drinks and...
We had a couple of...
drinks and we...
Drinks, pause, drinks. We had a couple of drinks.
The extent of the damage.
Talking about damage, damage to your brain cells.
That you're going to do.
You're going to do something you could do, something you do. You shake your head, didn't know you were going to do it. But
the extent of the damage that you're going to do.
People talk about doing drugs, don't they? They don't talk about doing a drink.
In a moment of,
you get drunk, it just takes a quick moment to snort that line.
The mistake that you...
Touches the nose, the mistake that you've made. There's the wide eyes. There's the dilated pupils. Is that mistake the sexual? Is that why his eyes are wide here? He's looking into his memory. Definitely looking into his memory. Remembered feelings. Is that sexual? I mean, narcotics and sex, very similar. Drugs and sex, very similar. Brain chemistry. is in play when you're being flooded with dopamine. Now, I'm not saying that they were doing cocaine, but I'm just saying that there are a few signs here that lead me to that sort of idea. I said I thought it was strange. You know, I think it's strange behaviour.
Never think about the extent of the damage that you're...
And when we cut back there, she is aghast. Her hands now dropped slightly because that strength, that anger, those clenched fists, the tension has dropped away to fear, just pure fear. What's he saying? What's he saying? What's he about to say? How is he going to fuck this up further for me? She is in fear.
that I've caused. You never think about the extent of the damage that you're going to do in a moment of...
Oh. There's a shuffle of the legs there.
In a moment of...
And again, I look up to the ceiling. Is she remembering?
In a moment of...
It's there, in a moment of... She's looking up to the ceiling and shuffling. Have they been having sex? Have they been doing coke? I don't know, there's something here that she, when she looks back on, she's enjoyed it. And she'd probably do it again, if she can get away with it. That's why she's reliving it in her mind briefly. It's just my feeling.
To do in a moment of, you know, the mistake that you've made.
Or is it just an eye? I mean, because it cuts away so quickly. It could just be an eye roll in absolute despair. It could just be a really condescending eye roll, as this guy is such an idiot.
You know, the mistake that you've made. I'm not perfect.
The hand point to himself. We're able to talk about something that at least he, feels comfortable with here, himself. And the statement, I'm not perfect, again, it's that suggestion we're all human, nobody's perfect. So he's not perfect, you're not perfect, mate. He's saying it to you, you're not perfect.
I'm not perfect.
Because he looks up directly into the eyes of the interviewer, Zoe Ball, when he says it.
I'm not perfect.
Almost accusatory. I'm not perfect, but nor should I be. Why am I being held to these stupid standards of perfection when you yourself are imperfect? How dare you?
Far from it. Our relationship.
Far from it. And he moves his head over towards Katya again, as he talks about our relationship not being perfect. Which is, again, it's just this sneaky language, isn't it? This sneaky language. It's almost like a lawyer or a politician. I'm not perfect. Our relationship isn't perfect. And to say our relationship isn't perfect isn't to say I've made our relationship imperfect. It's to say she's a bit of a shit. It's to say it's partly her fault. So now he's passing the buck to his ex-girlfriend. I'm assuming she's his ex. And Katya is absolutely disgusted by it and thinks less of him as a man for doing that, and recognises at the same time that he's making a play for Katya in this. He's still trying to get in Katya's knickers. He still thinks he can walk out with Katya.
I'm not perfect. Far from it. Our relationship wasn't perfect. That doesn't mean that I wanted it to end the way it...
And he points at Katya when he says the way it ended. He didn't want it to end the way it did. So maybe he means that he didn't want it to end with Katya. Maybe he wanted to engineer this situation so he could walk out of his previous relationship and into his next one. And it was the Katya thing they didn't want to end.
That doesn't mean that I wanted it to end the way it finally did. And I'm...
He was holding his breath through all that. He was holding his breath through that whole statement, and he finally let it out at the end when he got past the lie. I'm not even going to have to go through complicated body language there. He was holding his breath, almost as if he was skirting around something. You know, have you ever seen films where someone's climbing on a very thin ledge out and they have to hold their breath, or they scrabble past on that thin ledge and then relax again after you've got through it?
That doesn't mean that I wanted it to end the way it finally did, and I'm very sorry for that.
Looking into construction, looking bang up into construction, visual construction though, not audio construction. He's not trying to construct the words he's about to say here. He's thinking about how something looks.
Very sorry for that.
How does he look? He gives his eyebrows a little raise when he thinks about how he looks. Probably looks cool and interesting and honest. So he's considering how he looks.
Very sorry for that.
That's why he pauses just after the sorry, because that's the main thing, isn't it? To look innocent, to look sorry.
Very sorry for that.
Make sure you've all taken that in, my sorry look.
Very sorry for that. I feel it's... And again, this is that filler. He wants to keep talking, he's got the floor. It's Seann time. And even if this is negative attention, it's still attention, and he fucking loves attention. So let's keep talking to Seann like he's a clever adult, when in fact he's a bit of a dullard. And it's this qualifying language again. I feel it's...
Not it is, just I feel it's. It's almost the language of someone who thinks they're more intelligent than they are, who's heard lots of podcasts of lots of people talking, and knows the sort of tempo and rhythm of that intelligent speech, but doesn't really have the words and the thoughts and the concepts to back it up. So instead just uses filler and a serious tone to give the impression that he's smarter and more switched on than he really is.
Very sorry for that. I feel it's also important for me to say that...
This is interesting as well, because I don't think he even knows what it's important for him to say. He just wants to keep the floor, and he's using that hand there, poking out. Again, it's aggressive, it's confrontational, it's argumentative, but it's shutting the other person down, poking them down.
The people that know me the most...
And he flipped his hand there, so he was going to say one thing, you know. He was going to say something about somebody who is pushing down. You know, maybe he's talking about maybe he's thinking about the public there, pushing them down. Maybe it's his ex. Again, there's this anxiety, this concentration from Katya, who is listening to what he's saying, and if there was a table, she'd be kicking him under the table, you know, trying to control what he's saying, trying to shut him down.
People that know me the most...
And he flips it there. He flips it. There's almost like a real expression of remorse here. Slight upset, you know.
That know me the most.
You know, his brain sort of triggers, and he's surprised by that trigger.
People that...
Yeah, look, it's surprised. No, I'm going to scratch that.
People that...
Okay, what it is. It's this bargaining, this political, this lawyer, you know, and he gives you the believe me expression. People that know me the most. This is where his stand-up comedian brain allowed him to fill for time until he thought of a convincing thing to say, and he surprised himself when he thought of that convincing thing and then used it.
The people that...
There we go. Oh, I've got a good one.
Know me the most, that love me.
That love me, and he uses that word there. You know, this is, I'm not going to call it deception, but it's portrayal. You know, he's putting on his act here. People do love him. He's just told you that. And there's one eyebrow raised here while he's saying it. This is an argument. He's trying to... Seann thinks he's clever, and he thinks that when he talks to people, he can out-clever them and put ideas in their head. like politicians do, like lawyers do. You know, he's doing it to you now. He's working Zoe here. He's convincing her that he's a good guy with his clever argument and eyebrow.
People that know me the most, that love me, they know that I am not the person I'm being portrayed as.
I mean, doesn't that sound like something a politician would say? Doesn't it? It just sounds like a political statement. There's no emotion involved in that. There's no singing body language. There's no apology. In fact, he's aloof. He's above this. Like, the real people, they know the truth, and you idiots fucking portray me in the media. Well, his whole life is a portrayal in the media, isn't it? His whole act is a portrayal in the media. His whole job is to portray an image of himself. And the people that love him, he asserts, know that he's not this portrayal, but he's a different one. Well, I'd say he's not any of that. And what he really is, if he's going to spend his whole life putting on a portrayal, is somebody who puts on an act all the time. And if that's what you are, then that's what you are. You can't say, oh, but that was the act. No, that was you doing the act. It was you. And he's just caught between different roles here, isn't he? Different acts. He wants to be the cool guy for Katya, trying to pull her. He wants to be he wants to take the emotional or ethical high ground with his girl, his ex-girl, who he's trying to kind of bully into submission so that she doesn't reveal him as a bastard. He's trying to convince the British public that he's a good guy because he wants to sell his next DVD and comedy tour. And he's doing it all with a sort of argumentative, accusatory, slightly impatient, slightly annoyed manner of somebody who thinks they're above all this. Like a conservative politician. He reminds me more of a conservative politician than any kind of comedian.
They know that
And he says that in such a don't know, in like a nasal tone. Again, I'm going to ask, I'm not going to state it as a libelous statement, but I'm just going to ask, is this guy on some sort of nose powder?
They know that I am not the person I'm being portrayed as.
And he's left flat there. Another filler. He's so used to just filling this space in conversation so that he can keep talking. But you can see the vacancy and the almost defeat when he considers that portrayal. Maybe he's been found out.
I'm still sorry for what I did, but it's very important for me to get that out there.
It's almost like a self-argument, isn't it? Like a self-discussion. I am sorry, but I am important. It's important this other thing gets out there. So the other thing is not an apology, is it? He's slipped up there just at the end. This last bit was not as well thought out. It was just, he kind of put everything together as a conclusion and revealed something.
I'm still sorry for what I did, but it's very important for me to get that out there.
So I'm still sorry for what I did, but it's very important for me to get that out there, meaning I'm still sorry for what I still have to say I'm sorry for what I did, but I don't really think I should be sorry for what I did. That's what he's basically saying, isn't it? I have to say I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. He's starting the argument as soon as he gets the opportunity. It's almost like he won't accept it in his own brain that he's done anything wrong, that his own mind is fighting against this. He hasn't accepted it, has he? That's what it is. He's in denial of his own flaws. Seann Walsh. What's his name? Walsh? Walsh, yeah. Seann Walsh. It's got two N's on the end of his name. What a stupid... Anyway, Seann Walsh is in denial. And it's not just this situation. It's not just this Katya thing. I would expect, having watched this simple apology, that Seann is in denial about many things. I think Seann and the people that know Seann, the people that really know him, know that Seann will never accept when he's wrong and always has to have the last word. and always has to be right about everything, and always thinks he's right about everything, and thinks he knows a lot more than he really does, and he's in denial about his own shortcomings.
Okay, so
And in that quick wide, we get that shot again. Seann wants to appear like a couple with Katya. His knee is pointing towards her. His right hand is almost reaching out across his left towards her. And Katya has been forced to sit next to him, and her body language is pointing out and away, closed off defensive. She does not want any more of Seann. You can see that dynamic in action there. Seann is still lusting after her, but she has had enough of him.
So, thank you for sharing that with us. So for the rest of the week,
And there's a little movement there from Katya, as if like, right, we've done that, we can move on. A little clasp of the hands as she's holding the control of the situation.
back to
And a slight, I don't know if you got that, slight pursing of the lips here. Watch her lips.
week.
You see that? That's solid confidence. She's in control. She's listened to what's been said. It's all done now. She thinks confidently, yeah, I can spin this. I can come out of this with what I want. And I can control Seann because he's a fucking idiot.
Back to training. Moving on to the next dance. Yeah,
Absolutely,
Katya.
yeah.
Okay.
Charles
And she looks across to her notes. That expression of disgust. I don't think she wants to go back to dancing with Seann. I think she wants to stay on the show. I don't think she wants to go back to dancing with Seann. You know, far be it from me to decide what's been going on between them, but there's a lot of flirtiness going on in the dancing, isn't there? We all know about these dances, the dancers and their partners, and the sexual quality to it. You know, maybe there was something there at the start. Maybe she's the sort of person that fancies a lot of people when she first meets them, and then gets to know them and finds out that they're not quite up to scratch. So she goes back to her boyfriend. Maybe it's not the first time she's done this sort of thing, but she's certainly the sort of person. But she was certainly prepared to go out on the town with this man and kiss him. But maybe the magic wears off a lot quicker for her. Maybe it hasn't done for Seann,
Okay.
Charleston.
who now he gets the opportunity to continue dancing with her. And he's looking at her, you know, he's sizing her up here when she's talking about the dancing now. He's thinking, I think I've still got a chance here.
Working really hard. Still looking forward to Saturday, and
There was such a pause before she said that. She is not looking forward to Saturday.
still looking forward to Saturday. And
You know, she looked at him as well as if to say, like, look at that expression there. If a girl looks at you like that, you're probably not in.
still looking forward to Saturday.
Well, yeah, still looking forward to Saturday. And she looks to check to confirm that she's still dancing with this guy.
And doing that.
And that look of disgust, you know, when she looks away to check the notes, that disgust comes over her face every time.
Doing that Charleston as best as we can, really.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us, Seann and Katya.
And that's the end. And again, that pursing of the lips from Katya, the confidence, hands tightly clasped. And Seann just looks worn out now. I don't think Seann's even begin... Katya is obviously able to process all this stuff on the fly. You know, as it's happening, she's thinking about her public image, how people will respond, the right things to say, the body language. I imagine if you're a professional dancer, and, you know, it's a similar thing to being in any other kind of entertainment, you have to put on a performance. But there's a lot more discipline, isn't there, in the dancing? You know, that fixed smile, that performance. You dance even though your feet hurt and you don't show it. There's a lot more discipline. There's a lot more to think about very quickly in the dancing. You know, it's not verbal, it's physical, but there's a lot of steps and movements, and your brain has to be very sharp to do all that. And I think Katya is very sharp, and she's able to think about these things on multiple levels at the same time, whilst performing this performance that she's performed today in this interview, in this apology. Whereas Seann is just not on that level. He hasn't got the ability. I don't think he's even started to cogitate here. What he's just done, what he's just said. He's more ego-driven. He sees things through his own eyes. He thinks that other people are ignorant or stupid for not seeing it the way he sees it. And he's been condescending and argumentative through this apology. And he doesn't realise the game, the fullness of the game, the scope of it. And I think Katya has had her fun with Seann and has lost all faith in him. As apologies go, this one's pretty horrendous. Seann's not sorry. Not really. He wants to be with Katya, and he's proved it by snogging her, by being a shit to his girlfriend, by cheating on her, and then being a shit to her by arguing about it, and then going publicly on with this, I'm going to use the word relationship, whether it's professional or whatever, you know. Far be it from me to give advice to people like Seann and Katya, but ethically, I think Seann, regardless of his feelings for anybody in the situation, the minute that photograph came out of him snogging that woman, he should have said, I'm quitting Strictly. I'm really sorry. I'm not going to keep dancing with this woman because my girlfriend, well, my ex-girlfriend now it would be, wouldn't it? Seann, his ex-girlfriend. He shouldn't put her through it, should he? He shouldn't keep dancing with her on the telly, that Katya. So his ex has to, imagine every Saturday around her house. How fun that's going to be. She won't want to watch Strictly, will she? But she won't be able to not. They're going to be doing the sexy dancing together. It's just not right, is it? That's not family entertainment. That's not wholesome. Seann, if he was a real man and had some real balls, wouldn't fuck around with people's... Katya's got a boyfriend. He wouldn't fuck around with someone's girl if he knew she had a boyfriend. And if he knew he had a girlfriend, which he obviously did, he wouldn't be fucking around with any girls if he was a real man. And then, on top of all that, okay, we make mistakes. We all do, we're human. Not premeditated mistakes where you've worked the situation. That's not a mistake. That's not a mistake. That's premeditation, isn't it? That's the whole evening is a mistake, isn't it? One big mistake. No, you're thinking about it. You know what you're doing. You wouldn't do those things. But even if you got, once you're caught out, if you had some real balls, you'd say, right, fuck it then. Quit Strictly. I'm not going to put you through it, darling. I know it's over, but I'm not going to torture you. If it was Seann, he'd have to say, yeah, I really wanted Katya. But now I fucked it up, so I get nothing. Take it on the chin, Seann. They're my thoughts on it. This has been a really long video, but I hope you've enjoyed it. What are your thoughts on all this? What do you think of Katya? What do you think of Seann? Tell me in the comments. If you've got any suggestions for videos that we should be looking at, leave a link in the description below. Leave a link in your comment to the video and tell me why I should review it. We're doing requests. Leave a comment. I won't reply to any of them.